What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Waiver Wire Watch Party for Week 10. I'm your host, Jorge Edwards. With me, got Colby Conway and Aidan Weingartner. We are not Stacey Perez or Erica Brown or Charlene Erickson. They will be back next week. So it's guys' night tonight on the Watch Party. And you couldn't ask for a more conservative group of gentlemen who probably will not be partying too hard. Then again, you never know. You never know. Colby, how are you doing this evening?
Oh, lovely. Thanks for asking. Glad to be here. Looking forward to talk some waivers and put week 9 in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, seriously. I am hiding behind this smile all my angst and sadness over Jaden Daniels last night. But we'll get to that in a little bit later. More heartbreak as the show keeps going. Aidan, how are you doing, man? This is your first time on the Waiver Wire Watch Party.
Yeah, thank you. Not to put more salt in the wound, but unlike your teams, I'm a little happier tonight because obviously Bill's coming off a gigantic win over the Chiefs. Very much outplayed Patrick Mahomes and company. So I'm riding pretty high right now. Plus, get to talk some waiver wire, of course.
Yeah. Not to pour more salt in the wound like you weren't intending to, but I think
I did anyway.
Yeah, you did anyhow, and I think you did it on purpose.
Yeah.
But I digress. Anyhow, for everybody who's watching, thank you very much. Don't forget to hit the follow button wherever it is you're watching us on. If you're on YouTube, drop your comments in the chat, and we'll answer all your waiver wire questions heading into Week 10, as well as on X and on Facebook. Give us a follow there and hit that notification bell. Before Monday Night Football officially kicks off, I want to shout out somebody over on YouTube. His handle is at kspace91, and so he was with us all morning yesterday on the Fantasy and Frames kickoff show, or pregame show rather, which you can check out every Sunday from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern, where we cover all your start sit questions and give you news and notes and give you our flex plays of the week that we're really excited about. And him and I were having this discussion about, we were talking about, Trevor Lawrence or Jacoby Brissett, and that, who's going to score more, who's going to be the better option this week. And I was very pro T-Law. I thought the Raiders secondary was very, abysmal, and he could definitely take advantage of that. And the same rationale was kind of applied by K-Space 91 as far as Jacoby Brissett going against the Cowboys offense. And so I'll tell you what, we make a bet, and it's like, okay, I won't disclose what the bet is, but we made a wager. And he sends a message on the YouTube comments in the third quarter, and he says, "It's the third quarter and T-Law hasn't done shit yet. LOL." And I'm just like, ooh, okay. So I'm festering, I'm fuming, and I'm looking at everything, and
getting nervous.
Damn it, he's right. But then again, you saw the 2 rushing touchdowns. Then after that point, you saw T-Law finish as the QB. I believe he's at 11 currently with 22.2 points. And so I messaged him back. And I'm like, well, how about now? And he's like, yeah. We'll see tomorrow what happens with Jacoby Brissett. So I have an invested interest in this game in many ways, not just for fantasy purposes, but for going, one-on-one with K-Space 91. So
maybe more than you want to.
Maybe more than I wanted to. But we'll see what happens if this Cowboys defense is able to actually, shut down this passing game for the Cardinals. But we'll see. But hopefully K-Space 91 joins us in the chat during the Waiver Wire Watch Party tonight. But yeah, gentlemen, let's start with you, Aidan. What are you looking forward to for this Monday night matchup? Is there any one player or group of players that you're looking forward to for you, either in your leagues or just from a showmanship, show me a great game type of scenario?
So for league specific, I'll lay out the scenario for you guys. In one specific league, this is high stakes for money with my high school friends. Been going on for redraft league for years. I need talk about Monday Night Miracles. I need 26 points from my guy Javonte Williams, and then I'll win. If he doesn't get 26 points, then I'm out of luck. But and then I'll be 2-7 on the year if I lose. So,
well, one play, one snap at a time, one fantasy point at a time. What can I say?
2-time defending national champion too. I've won the last 2 years in a row.
This is hopefully where you're able to turn it around, maybe sneak into the playoffs here. We got Charlene regular on the watch party here at Fantasy Frames. What's up, Charlene? I hope you are well. Looking forward to seeing you, Erica, Stacy, and Colby all together next week. We got Brandon in the chat. What's up, Brandon? Says, I'm looking forward to not watching Monday Night Football today because Disney are greedy scum. I will not deny, but there is some greediness going on. We got Albert in the chat. What's up, Albert? How are you doing? We got Salvatore Leonardo 17 in the chat saying, I just traded George Pickens for Rico Dowdle. I have Jamar Chase, Rashee Rice, Quentin Johnson, Kayshon Boutte. My running backs are Devon Achane and Jonathan Taylor. And is that Chuba Hubbard is the last one? Would you have made that trade, Colby? Do you like that trade, Dowdle for Pickens, in looking at his roster as it stands currently?
I don't hate it. I mean, Dowdle is outperforming Chuba Hubbard on literally every advanced metric. And at this point, I don't know how Dave Canales goes back to Dowdle not toting the rock, and maybe in like a 70-30 type split. So I'm fine with it. Obviously, it's kind of tough to give up a piece of that Dallas passing attack. But with Jamar Chase, Rashee Rice, and then Quentin Johnson, honestly, receivers, you probably have better luck on the waiver wire than running backs. I don't hate the move.
Love it. Aidan, you concur there, buddy?
Yeah, generally speaking, I would say the Pickens side, but seeing the current build of his team, he needed a tick up at running back, so I agree on the Dowdle side.
100%. Great trade, man. Good job. Excellent. If you all have any trade things or trade questions or any type of fantasy football question you want, seriously, folks, just drop it in here. We'll look forward to talking to you, as well as getting to our waiver wire watch party notes for week 10 at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. Let's, in terms of news of relevance from yesterday, man, I was looking at, watching Red Zone yesterday, as most people are nowadays, as opposed to watching the full games, which I'm still a proponent of watching full football games. There's something about it that you have more invested interest in the teams that you're watching than just watching the scoring opportunities. But I wasn't doing that because I was, not listening and taking my own advice there. And, I finally see the game-winning field goal by the Panthers to beat Green Bay in Green Bay. And everybody in the locker room, they show the locker room, they're all cheering, everybody's hearing, having a good time. And, Rico Dowdle this, and, I'm like seeing all the fantasy points, line up. And I'm like, all right, well, Bryce Young, he probably had a good day. Dude had like 9 fantasy points. I'm like, what as a fan, like, of the team, and not talking fantasy, obviously for fantasy purposes, you're not feeling too good if you're the Bryce Young manager, even in a super flex. But just as a fan of the team, like, what are your thoughts there? Like, it's like, well, he's better than Andy Dalton, and I'm like, is he? Is he
a
really
low bar?
Yeah, it is a very low bar, and he's performing this season under that low bar. So it's makes you wonder, Aidan, if you were a fan of the Panthers, would you be like, this is the last year for Bryce Young? I want us to get a quarterback this next draft, or are you still, you know what, I'm gonna keep riding this wave until his rookie contract expires and they trade him off somewhere, and I'll get somebody else at that point down the road?
Because they have Dave Canales, and because I like how much of a good offensive play caller he is, I personally still ride with Bryce Young, but I can't deny that he could have, some competition going into next year where, like, in March, we had Anthony Richardson, and then Daniel Jones was brought in, and look at that. Daniel Jones ends up saving his career and winning the starting job. So I could see that scenario, but generally speaking, I'd still roll with Bryce Young. Maybe some competition like that, but that's about it.
We got Charlene in the chat. Can't make it for the show, but she is already dropping valuable advice here. She said, I picked up Bryce in the Superflex and sat in Virginia. This was not the week for Bryce, but I think he'll be okay going forward. There we go.
Me too.
We have a comment here from Brandon again. He said, did Joe Alt get bounty gated? That is, I would, we would have accepted also Tanya Harding or Nancy Kerrigan, but that reference may be a little bit too old for people. But I still think a lot of this.
I don't know.
Wow. Okay.
No, seriously,
I know that one.
Come on, Aidan.
Not me.
Do you really not know that reference? Is that really too old?
No, I'm serious. I don't understand what you're saying.
Man, okay. Well, you know what? There's Google for a reason.
We'll talk about it later.
We'll talk about it later.
There's an okay movie about it.
Was there really?
Okay, move.
See, Charlene gets it. She gets my references. She gets my references, my movie references, and you're awesome, Charlene. But yeah, so Joe Alt, first they lose their left tackle, Rashawn Slater, in the offseason, referring to the Los Angeles Chargers, and now they lost their other, their replacement left tackle, who was their right tackle previously, and Joe Alt. So, man, Justin Herbert, if you thought like he was going to be running a lot before, he's going to be running a lot now to escape pressures going forward, which is kind of good for his fantasy upside. Makes you wonder whether or not the passing yards are going to decrease because of which, assuming that they can't, they don't have enough depth there to overcome, those injuries. Aidan, let's address the elephant in the room. Those two banners behind you, the Buffalo Bills, they held Patrick Mahomes to, I want to say, 11.5 fantasy points scoring. Yesterday. Just utter.
I was surprised though.
Defensive dominance as an IDP person. One of the things about Buffalo Bills players in terms of recommending them for people is it's very hard to do that because they don't play a large complement of snaps. Because they're constantly rotating their players in and out to keep them fresh, which is smart from a real football perspective, but not great for fantasy.
It annoys me sometimes, but
But we saw Rousseau flying all over the place. We saw Joey Bosa, playing like the old Joey Bosa we knew him to be in Los Angeles, and so it was. I'm sure you were very ecstatic. I didn't want to call you. Like I knew we were going to be doing the waiver show today, and I wasn't sure if you could actually.
You were going to call me.
I was going to call you. I'm like, can you join us tonight? But I was like, wait, no, the Bills Chiefs game's on. Let me not ruin this moment.
Let me wait a day.
Yeah. Do you think I made the right call there, Aidan?
I like it. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. We got IO 2004 in the chat. Is Tyrone Tracy a drop to pick Jordan Mason, who was dropped last week for Tyrone? My running back is Rico, Monty, Knight, and Benson. Thanks. You're shaking your head, Colby. You're automatically saying don't do it.
I'm keeping Tyrone Tracy.
Right.
Jordan Mason's been terrible, even with the handcuff failure and whatever else.
And then plus we saw Aaron Jones getting more involved in the passing game yesterday. So that's also just becoming more and more of a murkier situation. If anything, Aaron Jones would be somebody that I would be interested in acquiring for redraft purposes, just because it's one of those things where it's like down the stretch, he should provide value. He was the wear and tear everybody was considering. Like he's been recovering from injury, and they've been keeping him waiting to come back, and so now he should be having fresh legs, as they would say, and that's obviously helpful for you in your fantasy playoffs going down the road. Brandon Howland in the chat says, "What's the Chiefs' one score difference record now?" That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that one. Nate Markham, if you're listening and or watching, I'm sure you'd love to chime in there.
Yeah, he doesn't. No, don't.
Nate Markham, of course, being a Chiefs fan, so that'll be good interaction. Aidan, you should pop on Fourth and Frames, which is on Wednesdays.
I heard last week he was going and going and going.
Was he really? Okay, well that's good to know. So we'll sneak you in the studio and you can address that.
Now I can go. Now I can tell him what's up.
Yes, exactly. Speaking of telling people what's up, like what's up with the Houston Texans, Colby? We were talking about this a couple days ago. Like this defense is not to be trifled with. And to be fair, they held Cortland Sutton to like one reception. It just turns out that was a 30-yard touchdown reception. But that from that standpoint, they were great. But as far as stopping RJ Harvey, Bo Nix, like they what are your thoughts on the Texans defense, and as far as like fantasy players going up against them going forward?
You're not going to feel comfortable starting any of them. If there's anyone you feel good about, it's probably slot receivers. Like Troy Franklin got targeted a ton, actually led the team in targets in that one. They were strong against the run. Dobbins was only at 4 yards a carry. RJ Harvey killed him through the air. The questions aren't on the defensive side of the ball. That's clear as day. Like you don't feel good starting anyone against them. Bo Nix did get to I think it was 15 or 16 fantasy points, maybe 19. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he ended up being okay. Probably the first notable fantasy performance from a quarterback this season. But all my questions are on the offensive side of the ball with Houston, and it's just devastating for fantasy purposes. Obviously, Stroud has a concussion. He's probably not going to play this week against Jacksonville. Nico Collins gets 11 targets, but my God, it felt like 5 during the game. He didn't get the ball enough. Jalen Knowles taking the same amount of snaps as the fullback. Makes no sense. He's the most explosive player they have. Wow. And then you have Nick Chubb and Woody Marks, who the offensive coordinator only wants to run them in the A-gap. There's no creativity. It's, you'll listen to every Houston kind of person out there, like in YouTube and content and everything, and it's basically they're running the New England offense. It's not creative, it's not exciting, and now we're going to go into week 10 with Davis Mills at quarterback against Jacksonville. So I don't know how you feel good with any Houston weapons right now on offense. I know your question was more so aimed at going against Houston. But
no,
if you have Nico, if you have Chubb, if you have all of these guys, I don't feel good about it. We are going to talk about one a little bit later that I think you can feel okay about, but it's ugly. Everything looks so difficult for the Houston offense right now. And then for some reason, we never saw it last year, but Nico just vanishes. They just don't prioritize getting him the ball, probably because they can't sustain drives. So it's a nightmare situation over there, and it's incredibly infuriating on Sundays.
Yeah, as somebody who's a Commanders fan, I can share those sentiments as far as like having zero productivity from your starters when they're there, when they're injured, having no depth. The elephant in the room here is, Jaden Daniels, should he have been playing, in the fourth quarter when it's 38-7? A lot of people are going to tell you, no, they shouldn't have. There's no point in going in, yada, yada, yada. But like, how many times have we seen, star quarterbacks stay in a game when things are lopsided also? Like, you can't predict somebody throwing him to the ground and his elbow bending the opposite direction. Like, I think there's a fine line between recklessness and just, crucifying somebody for a freak accident. That being the case, probably would not have had him in the game when it was 38-7. So.
Here's and I think the other thing too, I think because of when the injury happened, that's why it's getting all the publicity. I truly believe, let's say, because that was a quarterback run, I believe. Let's say he scores on that run.
Oh yeah, everybody's like, yeah, great.
And he won't come back out that next series.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, he would have been done after that. Like, Dan Quinn was probably trying just to let him finish the drive, maybe get some sort of, I know there's no or I don't believe there to be moral victories in the NFL to a certain extent, but like, let him get in the end zone. He would have been done after that. So like, again, it's very easy for us who were sitting there with our feet kicked back with a beer in our hand watching the game to be like, why is he in there? But like, this is those guys' livelihoods. Like, he probably wanted to finish that drive. I believe in my heart of hearts, if he scored that touchdown and Washington got the ball back, he would not have been out there. So it's honestly just bad luck.
Didn't Dan Quinn even say today, though, that he admitted he should have taken him out?
Yeah, part of me wonders if that was like...
That's hindsight's 2020. Like, it's very easy in the moment to say. Like, it's also super easy when a coach goes for it on 4th and 2, like, or 4th and 1, and they try to get fancy. Like, yeah, we should have run it. You wouldn't have came to the podium. Hey, I know we got that 4th down in the third quarter, but we should have ran it. They're not going to come out and say that. So like, yeah, I mean, yes, it with what happened, it's very easy to say, yes, he should have been out there. And honestly, probably shouldn't have. But like, what are you going to do? Let him do 3/4 of the drive and then pull him at that point? Like, I'm not trying to justify that it's right or wrong, but like, again, I believe if he scores on that player, doesn't get hurt, they finish that drive, he's not out there again.
And people aren't complaining about why is your quarterback playing in a lopsided game that late in the game.
Now, at the same extent, Houston does have Washington's 2nd round pick. So, like, I'm not rooting for the guy to get hurt. Now, I would like Mariota to struggle here the next couple of weeks in real life, not in fantasy, but in real life. But, like, I mean, it could happen. It's really bad luck.
Very realistic that he could struggle.
It could happen. Ryan in the chat says, is he done for the season? He hasn't been placed on IR. They have him currently as out. Can you come back fast with that dislocated elbow? As a person who's not a medical person, I don't know.
It's
do know
non-throwing arm. That does help to an extent, but I believe they said I was talking to my wife about this earlier, kind of. She was talking to me about it. I was kind of half listening. But she said something on the lines of that. It basically means that with the X-ray or MRI being negative, that there wasn't like a fracture or anything to the extent. There's probably going to be some ligament damage, but like supposedly it might just kind of be. I mean, it's going to be the majority of the rest of the season, but I don't necessarily think it's guaranteed to be season ending.
If they're out of playoff contention, though, is there any reason for him to come back? Like, if they're out in December, he's not going to come back? So
no, there's no reason to bring him back. I mean, to finish off the season with a victory, like it doesn't make sense.
It's like the Joe Burrow Bengals thing, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. To a certain degree. In fact, to a very similar degree. Brandon in the chat says, if Puka Nacua was on the Texans, we would never have heard of him. Ouch.
Wow.
Yes, because he's not a defensive player. The defensive rookies play right away for the most part. The offensive ones, they did. Under
Braxton
Robin Slowick.
Berrios outsnapped them.
Everybody's out snapping.
Jared Wayne.
I'm not young by any means, but I'm a veteran by their standards, so I would be out there more than Jalen Noel.
Brandon in the chat says, with the Commanders trade Tunsil to the Chargers, they didn't extend him. They did not give him a contract extension. So
is Debo out there too? Like maybe Debo goes.
Look, if you look at the trade or you look at the draft picks that the Commanders have, which is not many, this coming draft, like at this point, we went from trying to acquire a running back to trying to acquire an edge rusher to now, like it should be a fire sale between now and tomorrow.
That would be a bad look, though, if you give up all that draft capital in March for Tunsil just to flip him again.
That would be. And he actually hasn't been playing horribly. One of the big knocks on him was that he was a big false start penalty guy in Houston, and he actually hasn't been doing poorly in that category for Washington. So, you got to have some foundations, but I guess that's a very good point there. Let's get to a couple questions about tonight. Bob Hope in the chat says, can Bam Knight get at least 2 points tonight? Then he'll win. I hope so. A lot of people have been recommending Bam Knight as a person to play this week. So, fingers crossed. And of course, if we see him on screen while we're on air, do something that's 2-point worthy. Bob Hope 1, 2, 3. We will give you
one big catch, and he's there already. So.
Yeah, exactly. We'll give you the shout out there. And we wish you congratulations on your win. Let's see. We got a question from at AS-ET7YJ. YouTube and their names, I'll tell you. Franklin in the third for Pittman and Parker Washington Dynasty. Start 11, first seed now. So
Pittman by easily.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be allowed, but whatever.
And to Parker Washington, he may be somebody we'll be discussing a little bit later on the Waiver Wire show. The game has kicked off. I think Dallas made it to the red zone. I do not know if they were stopped on fourth down. I saw Jake Ferguson get tackled on the right side of the hash. So
they got stopped.
I think it was a sack on fourth.
Yeah,
sack on fourth. Well, they stopped on fourth down. Wow. Okay. Well, it makes you wonder why Dallas is so desperate to go for it on fourth down, right, to start the game. Like, are they that concerned about?
It's too short of a field goal. They don't want to waste Aubrey's
You're not complaining as a Commanders fan, though. So.
No, but it's like I get your point, Colby. At the same time, I'm just like, are you that hung up over last week that you just want to go out there and make a statement that you want to dominate by doing everything it takes to win, or is it just that was stupid? Why didn't you just get the points? Yeah. I don't know. But
12 plays that drive was for nothing.
Ryan goes on and says he's up by 10 points, but okay. So Ryan, who was mentioning, nope, actually, no, he didn't. This is a separate comment. Ryan is up by 10 points, but his opponent has Trey McBride. Do you think I have a chance tonight? Colby, immediate thought. What are you thinking here?
I want to say no. I mean, Dallas isn't terrible in terms of fantasy points against the tight end, but honestly, Brissett being in is so good for Trey McBride.
Yeah. Keith Fleming over at Fantasy Six Pack put out a good tweet here at Keith Fleming, where he was saying that you look at the targets receptions for McBride with Kyler Murray versus Jacoby Brissett, very similar in those regards, but the productivity in terms of yardage and touchdowns completely different, favoring Jacoby Brissett. So it's not looking good, Ryan. But we will.
Maybe the McBride touchdown allergy thing was more of a Kyler Murray thing.
Maybe. But our fingers will be crossed for you. We have favoritism towards you as somebody who's tuning into the show. So of course we're going to be rooting for you in your matchup this week. But gentlemen, let's get to let's talk about some as we're seeing the Cardinals take their first snap here. Let's talk about some quarterbacks, shall we? Well, actually, before we do that, Aidan, we knew Jim and I, our producer here, Jim Bednar, who does our Waiver Wire article, which will be out tomorrow. He left a message for you. And so I'm going to put that on screen right now. He just wanted to remind you that your Buffalo Bills are still not in first in the AFC East. It's still his New England Patriots. And so he just
Patriots got lucky. The Falcons kicker missed an extra point.
I'm just saying, you're not impressive win versus the Chiefs, but you're still not in first. Marvin Harrison with a nice reception there at 30-yard line from Jacoby Brissett. All right, let's get to quarterbacks. Let's talk about Aaron Balake, aka Aaron Rodgers, aka Aaron Rodgers.
I know that reference.
Shut up. Do you actually remember? You know that Key and Peele skit reference?
Yes, I've seen it 1,000 times.
That is amazing. Any reference that I throw out there, you immediately shoot down. So the fact that you actually get one is blowing my mind right now. Man, this is gonna be an interesting show. So Jim, Colby, when I was talking over graphics and whatnot with Jim earlier today, he had mentioned you had thrown out Aaron Rodgers and you had just made it underneath the rostership percentage cutoff that we have at 50%, with Aaron Rodgers being rostered at 49% on Sleeper. What are your thoughts here with Aaron Rodgers? Since week 7 from PFF, among qualified quarterback candidates, he's a QB9 in big time throw percentage. So we're seeing him make plays. Why should people be excited to pick him up off the waiver wire this week?
Yeah, supporting cast is good, about just under 17 fantasy points per game for the season, but he's actually closer to 18 now over the last 4, QB 19 during that stretch. The one thing that really stuck out to me that gives me a little intrigue with Rodgers is that over the last 3 weeks, the Steelers are actually the 7th highest in terms of pass rate over expectation. And we all know, back to the Green Bay days, as much as this kills me as someone who has Jalen Warren, they get to the 2-yard line. It can be a run call.
Yeah.
But if Rodgers takes that one step back and he likes the look, right there, 2-yard touchdown. We saw it 2 weeks ago with DK Metcalf, stuck him right in the chest. Really wish it would have happened last week. Didn't work. But Rodgers, he doesn't run, but if they're going to continue to kind of throw at this clip or be pushed in games, and obviously in that division, there's going to be other teams that can score the rock there in that division. I'm intrigued by Rodgers, and if they're going to, like I said, if they're going to keep throwing it like this, I'm all for Rodgers because, again, it's annoying as hell, but he's going to steal touchdowns close to the goal line.
Finishing so far prior to Monday Night Football as a QB 17 yesterday with 17.8 points. No, you look at his upcoming schedule, week 10 versus the Chargers. Since week 7, they've actually been stingier against quarterbacks, only allowing the 4th fewest fantasy points to the quarterback position. But then you go to week 11 and week 12, Cincinnati, second most since week 7 in terms of fantasy points allowed to QBs, then versus week 12 in Chicago, who give the 10th most fantasy points to quarterbacks since week 7. And we all know Aaron Rodgers loves his games in Chicago because he constantly wants to remind them that he owns them. Aiden, anything you want to add in regards to Aaron Rodgers before we go to our next quarterback?
Just quick, I agree with Colby. If basically waiver wire, whoever else, you want a quarterback that has an alpha number 1 wide receiver who can take up a lot of targets, theoretically. If they execute it, that's another thing. But Rodgers theoretically does have that with DK Metcalf.
All right, let's get to our next quarterback here. J.J. McCarthy. It was certainly good to see him come back yesterday. Obviously, people who had him started, which is not many of you, because on Sleeper he was only rostered in 25%. You look at the Yahoo ESPN combined consensus rankings, he's only rostered in 26.3%. So many of you, like myself, were just watching and it's like, all right, let's see what the kid does. And he did well. He finished currently heading into Monday Night Football as a QB 12 with 19.9 fantasy points. You look at his upcoming schedule versus Baltimore, Chicago, and Green Bay. Again, since week 7, all right, the Ravens have actually been pretty difficult. They've been allowing the 2nd fewest fantasy points to the quarterback. Now, granted, a lot of that is coming from this past week versus Miami. And then Green Bay allows the 10th fewest since week 7. But Chicago's matchup is actually in week 11 very advantageous. So he's definitely somebody for me that I'm seeing this, and I'm like, you know what? To Aiden, to what you were saying about Aaron Rodgers, he has, not just an alpha wide receiver in Justin Jefferson. You could put Jordan Addison in that discussion as far as being as an alpha wide receiver. You saw you saw Hawkinson get into the end zone yesterday. The running game is still, not
Jones contributes,
not there. They have running backs. It's not like, but they're not like blowing you out of the water where you're just like, well, this is going to be a run-heavy game. Trey McBride dropped a 25-yard pass. So, hey, Ryan, that's working for you already, if you're still watching in the chat.
Trap.
Yeah, but, But going back to JJ McCarthy, Colby, yes, he has a couple of difficult matchups going forward, but why should fantasy managers be interested in bringing him on board as far as this point of the season?
Nearly 20 plus fantasy points in 2 of 3 starts, and he's yet to top like 160 passing yards. I think 158 is his high so far in a game this season. So,
Right.
20 plus rushing yards in 2 of 3, a rushing score in 2 of 3. And you kind of mentioned the schedule there too. Once you get past that Green Bay and Seattle in 12 and 13, I'm looking at it here, weeks 14 through 17, he gets Commanders, Cowboys, Giants, Lions. And the Lions are Christmas Day. So there's a lot to like. They obviously like the kid. He's got plenty of weapons. So again, perhaps he is I think he's better than what he's been throwing the ball. But if he's going to be 18 to 20 fantasy points with 150 passing yards a game, the upside's there. And obviously they're going to let him run because obviously Mason and Jones haven't been very good. They need him to be productive and help. So he's young, he's mobile. So I really like what McCarthy's done. And the arm hasn't even been a big component of his fantasy output yet. And again, schedule's great come playoff time.
And not to mention with the immediate schedule being a little bit difficult, like not to what you're saying past weeks 12 and 13, now is probably the most cheapest you're going to be able to get him because people are going to be saying like, oh, well, don't start him this week because he's got a difficult matchup, and don't start him 2 weeks from now because nobody's thinking. A lot of people are not thinking. You people who are watching are thinking because you're very sharp and you're watching the Waiver Wire Watch Party. Smart people here watching our Fantasy and Fames programming. You should go get this guy now. Just have him on your bench, and just have him ready to go. And to what Colby was saying, plenty of upside down the stretch. Aidan, anything on JJ McCarthy you want to add to that?
So I'll fully admit I haven't been the biggest JJ fan in the past. I wasn't really a fan on Michigan. I wasn't a fan coming into this year, but I'll fully admit he proved me wrong against on paper and statistically what should be a very good Detroit Lions defense. You and Colby have been mentioning it. For all intents and purposes, McCarthy is a rookie QB who's barely started in the NFL. This was literally his third ever start in the NFL, so give him some grace there. But we talked about a young QB like this, not only an alpha receiver, but he has a phenomenal supporting cast. Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, and Jordan Anderson, So while the rushing game isn't working with Jones and Mason respectively, Aaron Jones is producing big numbers since his return from his hamstring injury in the passing/receiving game, and he has a good offensive line. And most importantly, guys, what I want to throw in here is I didn't know J.J. McCarthy had rushing upside like that. He has sneaky rushing upside on a weekly basis now, week in, week out, and what have you, as evidenced by that rushing touchdowns on third down that we saw against the Lions. I didn't know he had that part in his game, and Colby mentioned it. He can only go up from here if that arm gets better, if he continues to hit his receivers in stride more, and if he continues to up those passing yards on a weekly basis. We could be looking at a really good stash for now, but a weekly start a few weeks from now in the fantasy playoffs down the stretch. As mentioned, great matchups.
Fun fact here, this past week, again, heading into Monday Night Football, he was the quarterback 5 in average depth of target with 10.7 yards.
He's slinging it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I always remembered his time at Michigan being one of those short to intermediate.
They ran the ball so much. So.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't get to see the full repertoire there of JJ. All right, let's get to the third quarterback to discuss, and then we'll get into talking about who do we rank in terms of priority at the quarterback position off of waivers you should go after. And this one I put in here, so I'm sure some of you may not have a lot of stats ready to go, but I tried to pull the most positive ones. Yes, this is completely biased, so take that for what it is. Jaden Daniels goes down. Marcus Mariota steps up, 10% rostered on Sleepers, 6.6% in Yahoo and ESPN rostership consensus. In 3 games, he's averaged 16.9 fantasy points. He's averaged 34 rushing yards a game, 192 passing yards a game. Not great. You go to this coming week versus Detroit. This is probably his best matchup in the coming weeks because he's facing a Detroit team that allowed 18th most fantasy points since week 7, which when I say best, believe me, I'm using a lot of air quotes that you can't see on camera right now. And then week 11 versus Miami, who have been allowing the 5th fewest since week 7, albeit, this past week they gave up a lot versus Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. But, again, this is a situation where if you have Jaden Daniels and you're playing in a 16-team league or larger, like this is a deep cut. This is somebody that you may hopefully have available and maybe one of the only starting assets that you have available to you. That is the only reason why you're picking up Marcus Mariota this week, is if you play in one of those large leagues. If you're playing in a 10 or 12 teamer, no.
Ringing endorsement there.
Yeah, well, again, there's a caveat. There's a disclaimer. There's a disclaimer.
Oh, I like it.
And yeah, so that is something to pay attention to. But let's focus on the main two in your more casual leagues, your 10 and 12 team leagues. Aidan, we'll start with you. If you had to rank in priority Aaron Rodgers or JJ McCarthy to be somebody that you pick off of waivers this week, who would be your first target?
So I know McCarthy's fun and exciting. I still want to see it for him 1 to 2 more times, a couple more times at least, before I go as far as say over Aaron Rodgers. We've just seen it more of late, specifically this season. High-end fantasy producer from Aaron Rodgers at the QB position specifically. So I'll go Aaron Rodgers, but that could change in a few weeks. I just want to see a tiny bit more from McCarthy before I cross that bridge.
What about you, Colby?
I really want to go McCarthy, but Chargers, Bengals, and Bears for Aaron Rodgers next 3 is really good too. So I think I might do the good old throw similar money on both, drop the same player for both to ensure that I get one. So maybe
happy either way.
Yeah, I'll be happy either way. Even though I say all that, I'll maybe give McCarthy $1 extra. I think there might be a little bit more upside in there. And Jorge, let me just give you one little vote of confidence. I'm looking at it here. Sample size be damned. Marcus Mariota, more fantasy points per drop back this year than Jaden Daniels. Just don't shoot the messenger. Just saying.
Wow. You have to apologize to the jersey. No, I'm just kidding. Yay. Woo.
There's a good stat.
That Marcus
for the fantasy manager out there, don't worry about the sample size. Don't look at the number of dropbacks. That's all you need to know. #analysis.
That's all you look at. Just look at that and move on.
#analysis. Gotta love it. The last I saw before we get to running backs on Monday Night Football that Jacoby Brissett and the Cardinals were marching down the field. I did not get to see.
They took a page out of the Houston playbook. 15 plays to gain all of 60 yards, takes 7 minutes to come away with a field goal.
Well,
that seems a little personal.
See, you think anything Houston Texans related is going to be personal to Colby?
I was excited to watch this game to see some touchdowns, but apparently not. Apparently it's another slop fest.
Well, apparently the Cardinals knew something better than the Cowboys tonight, which is you play this game to get points and to get wins, and they didn't decide to go for it on 4th down. They were smart and took the 3 points. So anyhow, let's get to the running back position. We got 3 to talk to you in terms of priority this week, and I think we can all agree, for those who are looking at on screen as well as those who are listening, these are going to go in increasing priority, I would say, and you guys are more than welcome to give me your takes on whether or not you believe that to be the case. Well, let's start with Emmanuel Wilson, running back, Green Bay Packers, 24% rostered on Sleeper. One of the most this is an interesting situation. You go back to week 8, we saw him have a rush share percentage of 42.3% to Josh Jacobs' 50%, who is dealing with a calf injury. However, another week to get healthy, we saw Josh Jacobs, account for a 68% rush share, with Wilson going back down to around the mid-20s. I believe he is the handcuff guy, to roster, obviously, for Josh Jacobs, should he have an injury going down, if that calf injury flares back up again. But as far as having like weekly flex value, I don't know. I feel like this is a point of the season as we're getting into the double-digit weeks that we need to start thinking handcuffs. More importantly, maybe start thinking about your opponent's handcuffs. So if anybody who is taking on somebody, exactly, that is exactly right. That is the game within the game. And I will always credit Drew Scott from 4th and Frames, our director of content here, who you can catch him on 4th and Frames, our redraft show on Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern. He said something very brilliant over the summer that I still will always remember. If you are taking a high draft pick on a running back like a Josh Jacobs in the 2nd round of your fantasy football drafts in August, and you're drafting that person's handcuff, why? Then what value are you really giving that first pick at running back? you're kind of telling yourself, well, I'm expecting this person to falter, so I'm already going to draft it. Then why draft them to begin with if you're worried about them faltering?
Yeah.
It's more important to go take somebody else's high value handcuff. And so therefore, if you are sitting there and you're just like, okay, how can I start playing the game within the game? Especially if like you're at the top of your league, if you're like, top 3, top 4, you're definitely in the playoff mix, and somebody else has Josh Jacobs, and he's been dealing with an injury this season, and that when dealing with an injury, he cedes snaps and cedes rushing snaps to Emmanuel Wilson. Yeah, I want to go block that guy from picking up Emmanuel Wilson.
Even if you don't need him, just do it.
Yeah, no, exactly. CeeDee Lamb with a catch over the middle, but there's a flag on the play that's probably coming back. But I digress. Any counter arguments or arguments here in terms of Emmanuel Wilson and your thoughts on him, Colby?
No, I mean, the main thing to kind of just echo what you were saying is the adage that I've kind of always said when it comes to picking up some players. Like, even if you're not going to start them, it's better on your bench than in someone else's starting lineup, right, if things tend to work out. And yeah, I mean, just to kind of echo what you're saying as well, Jacobs is banged up. He's hanging on by a thread. His 3.8 yards per attempt would be second lowest of his career, and he's trending for his third lowest elusive rating per Pro Football Focus as well. So wow. Jacobs, honestly, this year it's been the work in the passing game and the touchdowns that have really kind of saved him. Otherwise, he hasn't been as effective on the ground, and maybe all of those touches are finally starting to catch up to the old workhorse there in Green Bay. But if something happens to Jacob, Wilson steps into just an elite role.
What about you, Aidan? Any thoughts there on
Emmanuel Wilson? Emmanuel, this is a pure handcuff, whether it's yours, whether you want to take it from someone else. I don't care. You're honestly never going to feel good flexing Emmanuel Wilson with Josh Jacobs in. But if, like Colby and you said, if Josh Jacobs is ever out, better on your bench than someone else's bench / starting lineup. Even if you don't need him, just get him on your roster, because he would be a weekly workhorse if Josh Jacobs, were ever out on a very run-heavy team that's dealing with major injuries, obviously. So that's I like the call. He's not. I don't know if he has flex upside. Actually, I know for a fact he doesn't have flex upside with Josh Jacobs in. But if he's ever out, weekly RB2.
Loved both of your all's analysis there. Going back to Monday Night Football, Dak getting pressured by Josh Sweat, threw up a duck. Should have been intercepted. Did not. The guy dropped it. So now they punted back to Arizona, but there is a flag on the play. So hold your horses there.
What a game!
Let's get to Isaiah Davis, who's our next running back to talk about. 34% rostered on Sleeper for the New York Jets. Any of you all want to take the lead on this one? Aidan, Colby, Aidan, you want to take him? Okay.
Yeah, I got it. So obviously, if you were planning ahead, you probably, like I've done it in a few leagues, you probably should have been stashing Isaiah Davis for a few weeks now, because he's carved out a nice little role for himself. But the reason I say stashing him for a few weeks now is, as we know, the trade deadline is tomorrow, Tuesday, November 4th, depending on when you're listening or watching this, after the fact, or right now, 4 p.m. Eastern. And if you're watching this after the fact, you might already know. But if Breece Hall were to be traded to some team like the Houston Texans or the Chargers or the Chiefs, some running back needy team like that, then Isaiah Davis would be a weekly mid to low end RB2 at the very least. Just because we've already seen flashes in the pen for him, if you will, a few weeks here and there. And if you picked him up, stashed him for the last few weeks, that could be a league winner. You've stashed a lottery ticket that will turn into absolute gold if Breece Hall is moved, which, spoiler, I personally do think and predict that he'll be moved. So this is your very last chance to get Isaiah Davis. Obviously, waivers run after the trade deadline, but you probably should have been stashing in the last few weeks to get ahead of this with the heavy trade speculation on Breece Hall. And you have yourself a lottery ticket that can turn into gold and be a true league winner. Same as in like a Rico Dowdle, but this even more so because the RB1 ahead of him might get traded. So, yeah.
What about you, Colby, for Isaiah Davis?
Of running backs who have at least one carry on the year, he's top 4 in yards after contact per attempt, missed tackles forced per attempt, and he's also top 10 in terms of explosive run rate. So, again, it's probably a little sample size considering he has like all of 17-ish carries on the season, but a lot of the metrics look good. So he might lose a little efficiency with more volume, but if Breece Hall does get traded, it's a bad Jets team that is going to just stick their head in the wall and just say, we're going to continue to run the ball and do it like it was Breece Hall. And it's going to be with Isaiah Davis. And he's shown to at least be relatively explosive. So could be a real good guy to have.
You go back to week 8, we saw on only 12 touches on the day. He can be impactful. He posted 109 total yards, 65 rushing, 44 receiving, 5 receptions. To your point on explosive run rates, he was averaging 9.2 yards per carry. Whether he gets traded, he jumps into that starter role. If Breece Hall stays, I may not flex him next week, but if we see the same production, he could be potentially a flex play for you, weekly flex play going forward. So to quote or paraphrase the great Tupac Shakur, all eyes on Breece tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. Ooh, yes, I know that's a horrible reference, but you know what? It made sense at the time when I wrote it down.
In your head, it made sense.
In my head, it made sense. And for all you Tupac Shakur fans out there that are listening, please be listening. Please tell me that he hasn't faded into obscurity with a lot of you people out there who are. Yeah, seriously, I'm surprised you haven't said that yet.
No, I know who that is. Come on.
Okay, well, come on, man. Like we throw a lot of references your way, and they don't always work out. I've gotten all of them
tonight, though. So step one.
All right, let's get to our last running back to discuss today. And like I said, this is, and we'll find out as soon as we're done talking about him whether or not we agree that this is a list of increasing value. But 26% rostered on Sleeper, talking about Tank Bigsby. For me, he seems like the highest value handcuff. Saquon Barkley heading into their bye was dealing with a groin injury, during the end of the week 8 game. But in week 8, we saw Tank Bigsby go in there with 9 touches and put up 104 yards. He is, Will Shipley is not the handcuff. It is Tank Bigsby. And we've seen the production, and we don't know whether Barkley is fully recovered from this injury or if it'll flare up again. Aside from last year, and this is something, Aidan, you had brought up in the preseason, you take away last year, Barkley has had a history of getting banged up and missing a couple of games here and there. And so it's not like, and he's just, another year older and another year where they're emphasizing the running game a lot more. Tank Bigsby steps into a starting role here for the Eagles behind that offensive line. Like I'm super excited to start him as my running back there. Any thoughts there, Aidan? Additional thoughts?
Yeah, I love this call for Tank Bigsby. He was my number one priority ad, regardless of position, after I thought about it, because yes, this is a speculative ad. We all know. If you didn't catch up, I'll catch you up quick. Saquon said right after the game, his post-game interview, that he could have gone back into the game with the groin injury if it was a much closer game. I'm not saying he's lying, but it didn't look like someone who could go back into the game. It looked like a more serious injury than they and him himself were letting on. And Tank Bigsby, we've seen this rotating handcuff situation all season up to this point behind Saquon. First, it was maybe A.J. Dillon, then Will Shipley. And now it is clearly Tank Bigsby, who was extremely efficient. What was it, like 9 touches and 104 yards or something like that?
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So if I remember that. So, Tank Bigsby is the clear handcuff here. And at minimum, he would be like a mid RB2, maybe even high-end RB2 if Saquon is out, which I think it's more serious than they're letting on. So for now, this is a speculative ad, but in just a few days, once we get that final injury report, once we get everything set, the dust settled, if you will, this could pay off big time for you. So might as well throw Tank Bigsby on a buy. And you know how in Sleeper, it sorts by previous week stats and stuff. He was on a buy, so not many people are looking from this past week in their waivers, so you can sneak him through there for much less than you would have had to if he wasn't on a buy, in my opinion. So this could pay off big time.
See, that is something that I never would have thought about talking about, but you bring up a very good point. Like, know your platform. Know how it actually presents players. Know how it actually works.
You have to do a lot of digging, but he's there.
People don't like typing in names. They like scrolling through names. They don't like typing in the search bar.
Too much work.
It's too much work. Yeah, no, like take the extra effort and beat people to the waiver wire. In terms of ranking these running backs now, in terms of the value and the priority for this week, Colby, we'll start with you. Who would be your least or your last in priority in terms of running backs to pick up out of the 3 we just talked about?
My last in priority, I'm just going to answer it all. I think I would switch Davis and Wilson on the left, and that would be my order. Davis, Wilson, Bigsby.
Davis, Wilson, Bigsby. What about you, Aidan?
I'm kind of a lot different here. I'd go Bigsby just because of the elite infrastructure and speculation of the injury. I go Bigsby, Davis, and then unfortunately I have a big gap. Then Emmanuel Wilson.
So, Colby, go back to why the order that you're choosing in particular.
Because the other two, I think, require an injury to occur, whereas an injury doesn't necessarily have to happen. Like we have an event that could come up before waivers with the trade deadline that could come up, and then Davis immediately steps in. That's not going to be anybody else there in the mix. Braylon Allen's out for a while. So I just think there's more of these three guys. Davis has the highest chance to potentially make a week 10 starting lineup.
I'm just going with that's fair. I'm just going with the Eagles offensive infrastructure over the Jets.
Sure. And the other thing, too, people are going to knock Bigsby. They did it back in Jacksonville. He doesn't catch passes. Well, the Eagles don't throw the ball to the running back at all.
Doesn't matter.
Like Barkley has as many games under 10 receiving yards as he does over. So it doesn't matter if Bigsby can't catch. It doesn't matter. They don't need him to in this offense. So if something were to happen, honestly, like in Green Bay or Philly, both these guys are set up really well and are on that, Davis workhorse level. Obviously, Philly's shown they're very content with riding one running back. Green Bay has shown they are completely fine loading up touches on one running back. So all of these guys, if they were ever to get to the RB1 spot, I think, like you said with Davis earlier, Aidan, is that these are all easy RB2s, and some could even push like back end RB1 contention.
I will say though,
workhorse.
Isaiah Davis is the only one, even if Breece Hall stays, that has standalone value in my opinion, out of all three.
Sure.
So as you guys were talking, Amari DeMarcado just busted out a 20-yard run to take. I know Bam Knight. I know where's Ryan and his. Why wasn't that Bam Knight? I know. So they're in the red zone within the 10-yard line. I want to say for Dallas, the Arizona Cardinals are. So we'll keep you up to date.
Next, it will be Michael Carter.
Yeah, fresh off the practice squad, Michael Carter.
They cut and brought back.
Yeah, which I don't know why they do that. Like, was it like a salary thing?
Roster maneuver or something?
I don't know. Let's get to wide receivers now. This one a little bit deeper than the previous two. Mm-hmm. Let's start with the guy who just gutted me in the first quarter or first half as a Commanders fan here for the Seattle Seahawks. Torrey Horton, 15% on sleeper. In games this season with at least 4 targets and half PPR scoring, he's averaged 14.3 points per game. He plays primarily outside wide receiver, contrary to what people might be thinking. Like, well, Cooper Kupp comes back, he's going to lose. No, Cooper Kupp plays in the slot. Horton is outside. Different positions. We saw him last night against the Commanders go 4 for 4 for 48 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like I said, even with Cooper Kupp, coming back to being on the field, Bam Knight takes the ball. He's running it up there. He gets to the 4-yard line. Sorry, Ryan. Almost got that touchdown. Almost got your 2 points there. Going back to Torrey Horton, we go back to his schedule. Week 10 versus Arizona allow the fourth fewest fantasy points to the position since week 7. But weeks 11, weeks 12, Rams, Titans, 8th most, 6th most. I mean, this guy is in a position here to really do some damage for fantasy managers, and at only 15% rostered, like on sleeper. This to me, he's climbing up there in terms of which one I would have as one of my top wide receivers to add off this list that we'll be talking to you about today. Colby, what are your thoughts on Torrey Horton?
2 touchdowns Sunday Night Football, healthy 2.40 yards per route run, elite 83.3% route participation. Sean McVay told us everything last year that we needed to know about Cooper Kupp. That is a Rams legend that he totally phased out of the offense down the stretch. That's all I needed to know. Cooper Kupp is the perfect. He will sit down in a zone. He'll be a chain mover. Horton offers more upside in this passing attack as the team's wide receiver too. So obviously we see the rookies have some of that success as the year goes on. So I really like Horton to emerge moving forward here as the wide receiver 2 behind Jackson Smith and Jigba in this, I can't believe I'm saying this, but pretty high octane Seattle offense. So I love Torrey Horton. I can't gush about him enough.
We just saw 8-play, 47-yard drive culminate with Marvin Harrison in a 4-yard touchdown.
Oh, so teams are allowed to score.
Teams are allowed to score points, contrary to belief.
That's good.
Arizona up 10-0 at 12 minutes and 17 seconds in the first quarter.
What a game.
Okay, let's get to our second target here at wide receiver, pun intended, or maybe not. Maybe I just stumbled into that. Let's talk about Parker Washington, 27% rostered on sleeper. 8 receptions on 9 targets for 90 yards yesterday, heading into Monday Night Football as the wide receiver 19 and half PPR scoring. Brian Thomas, banged up. Brenton Strange, banged up. Travis Hunter on IR. I mean, you couldn't talk about a more clear pathway to targets than Parker Washington. Aidan or Parker Washington, is he one of the most important pickups at the wide receiver position for people this week?
I think he is the premier pickup for me personally, at least at waiver pickup. That is rather at wide receiver this week. Because if you look at it, obviously late last week, I think it was Thursday or something like that, Travis Hunter surprisingly in practice knee injury goes on IR, and everyone's like, okay, who's going to step up, De'Ami Brown or Parker Washington? To me personally, if you ask me, it was always going to be Parker Washington, even heading into the game, because De'Ami Brown, Jorge, you know this as a Commanders fan, he's good for 1 or 2 deep shots a game, but he's not going to move the chains. He's not going to get a consistent amount of targets. Parker Washington plays in the slot like Travis Hunter did, majority of his snaps in the slot, so Parker Washington directly takes over for Travis Hunter, in my opinion, and we saw that Trevor Lawrence is building a nice connection with him. I mean, he's the only healthy pass catcher standing that we really care about, so I think Parker Washington has become a target hog in this offense. ETN had a little bounce back game, but he hasn't necessarily lit the world on fire, if you will, this year. So, and Trevor Lawrence has turned a corner, it seems, the last few weeks in terms of like his fantasy production, at least, and how he can support Parker Washington and whoever's healthy left there. So I love Parker Washington. He didn't get in the end zone yesterday at this point, but it's only a matter of time before he does that. So I love Parker Washington's outlook.
Are you equally as ecstatic about Parker Washington there, Colby?
Yeah, everyone says Trevor Lawrence is a first read thrower, and last week, 34.6% first read rate for fantasy points data suite. So not an ideal matchup against Houston. The only thing I will say is if you are going to go at Houston, teams seem to like to target players out of the slot. They want to go at Jalen Petrie more so than Kamari Lassiter and Derek Stingley Jr. So maybe there's a little upside there. We just saw Troy Franklin get 10 targets against them. So maybe there's some upside there. But, it just always seems that it's like not the bum receiver, I shouldn't say that. It's the no-name receiver of the team that get to Houston eventually. Like it's never the stud. Like Cortland Sutton had the touchdown, but it was Troy Franklin that gets 10 targets. That's what it always seems to be like. So if you want some upside there, go for it. But I think Parker Washington is the priority wide receiver to add. Everything is there for just production.
At least it wasn't Pat Bryant or something.
Yeah, well, he had a nice play to move the chains on a key drive there too. So yeah. Yep.
Love it. Let's get to our next wide receiver here. This one is definitely a roster with a wait and see caveat, I think. And that is Cedric Tillman, Cleveland Browns, 60% rostered on Sleeper, designated to return from IR. Look, I think a lot of us were really high on him earlier in the season because, hey, he had Joe Flacco, who was just, hug it, chug it, football. Let's just throw it down the field, and Cedric Tillman's down there somewhere. Words I never thought I'd say, but I just did. But now that's not the case. Now he's Joe Flacco is in Cincinnati. Dylan Gabriel's a quarterback. How long is that going to last? Dylan Gabriel and the tight ends seem to have the rapport, specifically Harold Fannin. But again, he hasn't shown that he could support multiple weapons in this offense. Do they go to Shedeur Sanders? Does that help, Cedric Tillman? A lot of unknown variables here. But we do know that when he gets the ball, he makes plays. He is a playmaker. He's probably one of the more explosive playmakers in this Browns receiving game. And yes, even more so than Jerry Jeudy, I would think, at this point. Colby, can you give people out there why they should be paying attention to Cedric Tillman and like either rostering him this week if you have a really deep bench or just keeping tabs on him going forward?
Yeah, it's a deeper league add only. Quarterback play, is concerning. But prior to the injury, Tillman played in 74+% of the snaps each of the first 3 weeks, scored twice, and averaged 6 targets per game. So at this point of the season, we are looking for guys that maybe if the production isn't there right away, they're at least going to get out on the field and play a lot, especially in deeper leagues. And Tillman showed that he was going to do that earlier. He won a job out of camp and was going to be a regular guy for them. So as much as I do have concerns about the quarterback play there, in Cleveland there with Tillman. I think he's someone that's going to play a lot, and eventually, like he can fall into some 4 for 40s any given week. And, there's still some bye weeks coming here. And if you just need a little bit of production, he's going to be out there. So it's not the sexiest pickup. It's not going to be a league winner by any means, but maybe he can do just enough to get you through, whether you have some injuries or some buys or something like that.
All right, let's get to our last wide receiver to talk about today. Christian Watson, 33% rostered on Sleeper, back-to-back 4-target games with a yards per target of 15 yards or more in both of those games. Aidan, Christian Watson, why should people be paying attention to Christian Watson on their waiver wire this week?
So first, before I start diving into specifics here, 2 things. Number 1, I'm shocked he was even back this soon. But number 2, more importantly, I'm shocked that even Christian Watson was even as involved as he was after coming back so soon. The target share has been up there. The route share has been up there. Matthew Golden's been disappointing all year, and he has a shoulder injury. Unfortunately, breaks my heart. Tucker Kraft's out for the year. It may be to start next year as well. A torn ACL. Just disappointing, obviously, and heartbreaking. Already mentioned all that. And then Jaden Reed, we'll see if he comes back from his Jones fracture and broken collarbone. He's eligible to come back within the next 2 weeks. We'll see if he actually does come back. But I like Christian Watson. Like he's back. Like he is the deep downfield target for this offense. With an offense that's Josh Jacobs is battling through injury. Clearly, he's not nearly as efficient as he was last year. He's playing through injury. And the passing game weapons, if you will, that have been decimated due to injury. I love Christian Watson. Romeo Doubs is Romeo Doubs. He's going to get the quote-unquote high-volume targets in this offense. But the touchdown, especially with no Tucker Kraft now, the touchdown upside does go to Christian Watson, in my opinion. And I love attacking deep field targets in a high-volume passing attack like the Packers.
Colby, would you say that Watson is starting to emerge as the – and I feel stupid just asking this question, but I have to ask it, as the one primary receiving option for the Packers now that Tucker Kraft is gone, that people should be thinking about, this could be Watson's receiving core now with all the injuries that they're dealing with. Should that be the mentality that people are having when they go out and put a claim or waiver bid for Christian Watson this week?
I think if you get him, you should think that. Yes. Okay. I have some reservation just because I don't know if Green Bay's ever going to use just a true 1 alpha. Like that's just not in their DNA. But I agree with Aidan. Like Dobbs is going to be the 6 for 60, 6 for 70 guy, but Watson could be the 4 for 130 and 2 touchdowns.
Break one off. Yeah.
Yep. He's the big play there. And you have to be excited coming back from the injury now. The last 2 weeks, 59.5% route share in his season debut, and then up to 68.4% this past week. Kraft is obviously out. We still have no Jaden Reed, and Matthew Golden somehow went from week to week to day to day in the matter of hours. So I have no clue really what's going on there. Yeah, it's a pretty big shift from week to week to day. But yeah, I mean, I think he has the most upside of the group. So I will say at that. I don't think he's going to ever be the true alpha, but I think the upside on any given week, Watson is the highest in that department.
Even when healthy, Golden has been disappointing anyway. So
yeah.
All right, Aidan, let's start with you. From top to bottom, top priority to lowest priority among these wide receivers, how are you ranking them?
So number 1, far and away for me, clearly is Parker Washington. 2 and 3 you can flip. It's really, really close. For number 2 for me is Christian Watson. Number 3 for me is Torrey Horton. Who is the 4th one again?
It's Cedric Tillman.
Okay, Cedric Tillman. I just don't have any interest in any of these pieces other than Judkins and the tight ends. None of the wide receivers really interest me.
What about you, Colby?
Parker Washington, Torrey Horton.
Yeah, fair.
Christian Watson, Cedric Tillman.
Yeah, I think that's how I would rank it as well. Just because, for me, the flipping of Watson and Horton, it really comes down to, Watson, we've seen him have the big play potential. We see him that he's ramping up right now. But this, if you add him, understand you're adding him for a down the road, upscaling of incorporation into this offense.
Fair.
Horton, you are seeing him already incorporated into this offense, and he will continue to be incorporated more and more into this offense. But again, they're very close. But I agree with you. Parker Washington is hands down the the top wide receiver waiver ad this week. We got the Cowboys going to Monday Night Football coverage. They have the ball. Dak stumbled coming out of a handoff, and the Cowboys just look horrible. It is just embarrassing. Like Jake Ferguson got called right now for holding on Josh Sweat. They're having big, their CD Lamb's not catching balls. Dak
I'm
has
not
just
getting
been off all
those
night.
Javonte 26 points. That's not
Well, Javonte has been like the lone bright spot, which I don't know if that's saying a lot, to be honest with you. So sorry, Aidan.
It doesn't take much how they're playing tonight. I don't.
Javonte Williams currently has 9 carries on 43 yards. Dak just was running to the sideline trying to throw to George Pickens, and that was incomplete. So a lot of things not going right for Dallas so far from a real football as well as from a fantasy football. Dak Prescott has only gone to 2.98 fantasy points. So it'll be nice and round up to say he's gotten you 3 so far.
This is 3.
Yeah. A good solid 3 through a quarter and change. Do you ever do that? Like when you're playing on certain platforms that go the extra decimal and you're just like, man, that roundup is going to feel so good. Maybe that's just
it goes from 2.9 to 3.
Yeah, I'm like, I'll take it. I'll take that 10th. You know it. Whatever. I'm a dork. Let's get to the tight end position here. I'm sorry. What was that? What was that? Aidan, did you say? Yeah, we know. Is that what?
No, I said moving on.
Oh, okay. I thought you were making a jab at me. Okay, my bad. Sorry.
No.
Let's get to the tight end position here. Elijah Arroyo, Seattle Seahawks tight end, 5% rostered on Sleeper, rookie. Over the last 2 games, Arroyo is tied in targets with AJ Barner. Both got touchdowns last night. But again, it's one of those situations where we're looking for consistency. And over the course of time, we've seen a consistent increase in production from Arroyo and incorporation into this offense, which for AJ Barner, we've seen him sporadically have these big games or these moments where he's incorporated into the offense. So for me as a fantasy manager, I like seeing the increasing trends. I don't know if I like seeing the boomer bust situations. I'd rather have a boomer bust. I'm thinking best ball leagues. In redraft, I want to think more of like consistency going forward. That's just my take on that. Colby, let's get to you about Elijah Arroyo. Why should people be interested in acquiring him this week, coming off of his touchdown performance versus the Commanders?
Yep, the post-buy bump for the rookie is a thing. He's up to 40+% route share 3 of his last 4 games. And if you look here over the last 4 weeks, sure, Barner's lapping him in terms of route participation, but Arroyo's got the higher ADOT and the targets per route run is similar. So I like Arroyo's upside more. If I'm not mistaken, wasn't Barner's touchdown on a tush-push at the goal line?
Yes, you are correct. Yep.
So
yeah,
I think there's so much more that they can do with Arroyo than Barner in the passing game. So you're taking a stab on a young rookie trying to add a little electricity into an already pretty good offense there in Seattle. But I think I mentioned Arroyo's name like 5 weeks ago on the waiver show here, and I'm just going to continue to do it till it happens.
Yes. And what are your thoughts on Arroyo?
Yeah, I really like Arroyo as a prospect. Really like the fit with the Seahawks. If you pick him up, it's a true streaming option. Obviously, with a lot of tight ends as is. Just be aware that it might be a bit frustrating to deal with. Who's going to get more snaps between Barner and Arroyo? Who's going to get more routes and route share and target share between Barner and Arroyo? Just have all those things to be aware of in your head. But yeah, I like a speculative ad with Arroyo.
All right, our next tight end that we do not have listed here on the graphic, but I want to talk about Theo Johnson, New York Giants, 22% rostered on Sleeper, coming off of a 6-target, 3-reception game with a touchdown and 10.2 half PPR points. They got to throw the ball to somebody, and we're seeing Theo Johnson over the course of the since Jackson Dart has been the starting quarterback. Their chemistry has been developing. You go over the next 2 games looking for immediate returns. Week 10 versus Chicago, giving up the 9th most fantasy points to the tight end position since week 7. Green Bay the following week, 17th in points allowed. So again, you have not really a lot of great options in the receiving game. You have a developing chemistry building rather with Theo Johnson and Jackson Dart. You have the favorable matchup, especially in week 10 for streaming options for those Tucker Craft managers. Pour one out for him. He is somebody that we should definitely be thinking about as a waiver wire option. Quick thoughts, Aidan Weingartner, Theo Johnson.
Yeah.
Yep. All on board.
Yeah. I picked this for a reason. Jackson Dart, I'll admit it, he's looked way better than I thought he would, throwing the Lil Jordan Humphrey, Jalen Hyatt, and whatever the heck the one or two big plays that came there, Slayton with all the drops. He's got to throw at somebody. And young QBs, especially rookie QBs specifically, like Theo Johnson's young too, so they have a connection over the middle of the field. And we've seen the touchdown upside with Johnson. Dart literally has nobody else to throw to. The target share is always going to be high there for Theo Johnson. I love this.
What about you, Colby?
Tight end 15 in fantasy points per game dating back to week 5 with 3 games of double digits in there, so can't complain.
All right, let's get to somebody who's near and dear to your heart here. Let's talk about Dalton Schultz here, 29% rostered. Colby, why should people be paying attention to Dalton Schultz off of the waiver wire at tight end this week?
Tight end 12 over the last 3 weeks, 2 games, 13 plus fantasy points, 81% catch rate. And he's got an ugly 4.7 ADOT, so don't really look at that. But 1.90 yards per route run, and he's honestly like been the number 2 pass catcher in this offense. And then you look at his contract too. Houston does have a potential out after this season on his contract, so he could be playing for a little bit of money. So to quote the great Tauheed Epps, I know you guys know who he is. Money's the motivation, money's the conversation. And if you don't know who Tauheed Epps is, that is 2 Chainz.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Real names. Gotcha. Yep. Okay. That makes a lot more sense now. Okay.
That's his real name.
Look at you. Nice pull. All right. Let's get to one of our more prominent tight end people that we're talking about today. Colston Loveland, 27% rostered on Sleeper. Look, yesterday was, 6 receptions, 118 yards, 2 touchdowns, 26.8 fantasy points in half PPR. You look at the next 3 weeks, New York Giants, 15th most points allowed since week 7, Minnesota in week 11 with the 10th most. And then, week 12 against Pittsburgh, allowing the 5th most fantasy points to the tight end position since week 7. Cole Kmet is still dealing with he got injured yesterday, I believe, during the game. And we saw Loveland's incorporation into this offense. I mean, this is a first-round pick, people, that they're finally starting to let
10th overall, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, he's definitely somebody that is starting to get more involved in this offense. And, when Caleb Williams is looking downfield, not even like for the short to intermediate dump up, but looking down, he was looking for downfield for Colston Loveland. And they were having Colston Loveland run these routes on that game-winning touchdown pass that he had yesterday. That did account for a lot of the 118 yards that he did post on the air. He is a smash, absolute must try to acquire at the tight end position, especially if you're the Tucker Kraft manager who's looking for who am I going to get? Who's going to give me the upside? Maybe not the consistency yet, but the upside. I believe that to be Colston Loveland. Colby, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it was a perfect environment for a breakout, but really the writing's been on the wall if you look at it. 4+ targets in 3 straight games, and actually week 7 through 9, 2.17 yards per route run, and his targets per route run was actually the same as DJ Moore and Roma Dunte. So that's just kind of something interesting there. And again, maybe it's taken a little bit longer than what many people thought, but there is no world where Ben Johnson and the Bears brass can say, we're going to take a tight end at, I want to say it was 10th overall.
10th,
if I remember correctly. There's no way you take a player at 10th overall and not make him a pivotal part of the offense because you have Cole freaking Kmet. That was never going to be the plan. So yes, this was a perfect environment. Every tight end is just dominating this Bengals team. That's going to happen, and it's going to continue to happen. Like, honestly, we should just have a recurring spot. Like, I know Jim makes the graphics. Just leave tight end versus Cincinnati. That's it. That's it. It doesn't matter who it is. It's a must start. But yeah, everything is finally coming together from Loveland. He's a must acquire. He's someone that you're definitely going to want.
Breaking news from the Dallas-Arizona Monday Night Football game. Dallas with the blocked punt recovered in the end zone. Dallas is on the board with 7 points. Right. So that is special teams.
Wild game.
Yeah, if you have a DST, if you Dallas DST, you're feeling pretty good about
which nobody would have.
Nobody would. Yeah, no, don't use DST. Play IDP. There you go. Play IDP fantasy football. There's my IDP plug for the game. And then finally, in honor, I know the expression "pour one out" is mostly associated with like beer. I'm not going to use beer. To honor, and I don't know if this is a compliment or not, but let's just take it as a compliment, Stacy, Erica, and Charlene. But I'm going to honor you with a bottle of wine and pour one out in terms of sips into my mouth for
empty.
And there goes that bottle. Lovely.
Okay.
Yeah, just man, that has to suck so bad. Like the guy was breaking all sorts of records in terms of yards per reception or yards per route run, dating back to last year. As a tight end, like, and just for him to tear his ACL, that is soul crushing. But next man up for the Green Bay Packers, Luke Musgrave. Obviously, it's not great to place similar expectations that you had for Kraft for Musgrave, but what's the silver lining here, Aidan, for Luke Musgrave as a tight end option?
Yeah, so obviously he elevates into the tight end one role. Obviously, Matthew Golden's dealing with an injury. Jaden Reed's been out for a while. Although I have excitement for Christian Watson, let's be honest, he can be boom or bust. So Luke Musgrave could fit into a role here. And Jordan Love, besides the Panthers game, has kind of been on fire this entire season. Now, I was thinking about this earlier today, just in my head preparing for the show, and let me know what you guys think of this. I feel like Luke Musgrave could be a speculative ad because the Browns have been said and rumored to have David Njoku on the table. What if the Green Bay Packers go after David Njoku by the deadline tomorrow? Obviously, that would kill Musgrave's value, but that would make perfect sense in terms of a fit with Njoku with the Packers.
No, that actually would. You want to talk about like an instant turnaround and replacement and being able to fill a void? That would definitely be one there. Colby, if you had to pick a beer that you wanted to pour out for Tucker Kraft, what would you be pouring out in his honor?
Oh, it'd have to be something good. I mean, he had a 16.8% target share, 2.57 yards per route run. Those are pretty elite numbers. It'd have to be a pretty good beer. I'd probably go with a nice, let's go like a 7 to 8% double IPA with some
that's up there.
Some tropical notes in there. I think that's probably what I would do.
Nice.
Yeah. Nice.
We should have a Fantasy and Frames food and beer pairing show.
That would be something.
Like a tailgating show or something. Just
recommendations for.
Yeah. Like once we're in the NFL playoffs, not the fantasy playoffs, but the NFL playoffs, just to still keep us all on air. We'll do some cool.
We're all just eating on the air.
Eating and drinking on the air and talking football. I feel like that'd be fun.
You just wait till we do that because weather's getting colder and everyone's gonna have these nice drinks. That I'm gonna come in with this 13.5% boozy stout. We're getting the stout season, baby. It's gonna be great.
I love stouts. You know me. I was drinking Guinness at the expo in August, like it was nothing. So
August.
I'll always be down for some stouts. And of course, we have to break out the 10% beers in their sifter glasses and just completely do it up for the holiday season. Food for thought. And literally,
you could bring the whole bottle like you did tonight.
Yes, exactly. Well, to be fair, there was very little left, but I wanted to use the last bits to pour one out for Tucker Kraft. But I digress. Arizona, going back to Monday Night Football, is with the ball marching down the field. It's this bet with was it?
It's a game.
No. I was going to say his name is again going back to K-Space91 on YouTube. Him and I are competing to see who's going to outscore who, Jacoby Brissett or Trevor Lawrence. So let's hope that I win this one, folks. Cheer one for Jorge. But if K-Space91, you're able to pull this off with Jacoby Brissett, you'll definitely get some swag coming your way. And that's the cool thing about watching Fantasy and Frames programming is you never know when we'll also be giving stuff away to all you loyal Fantasy and Framers. So yep, I think that's gonna wrap it up for the show. Guys, anything you are looking forward to heading into week 10? Colby, let's start with you. Besides victory and success and whatnot.
Yeah.
And all that.
Let's say good health for all the teams out there, and then I'm trying to look at matchups quick. I'm gonna give a little nod to the Rams-Niners game. I think that one's gonna be an intriguing one there. Maybe the over-under isn't all that. I mean, sitting at 49.5, pretty good, but that's a game I'm excited to see.
What about you, Aidan?
Yeah, can't wait for the trade deadline tomorrow. We've talked about a couple things could be impacted or not from it tonight, so that's going to be exciting. And hopefully, we don't have another gruesome, fancy, devastating injury like we did with Tucker Kraft next week.
Man, I am hoping that the Commanders can keep it within, I don't know, like 20 points of Detroit next week. I
Oh,
hope.
boy.
I don't know if that's asking a lot, but
That's going to be bad.
I am looking forward to the trade deadline as well as seeing what the Commanders do. Hopefully getting some more clarification on Jaden Daniels' injury. Just, you talk about the air getting knocked out of you for us Commanders fans in the nation's capital. That definitely hurt. As far as the game for next week, though, I am definitely looking forward to Atlanta versus Indianapolis. I'm looking forward to these wide receivers going off, both Michael Pittman and Drake London. That should be a wide receiver showcase matchup there for the week. So, folks, thank you very much for tuning into the Waiver Wire Watch Party for Week 10 in terms of Fantasy and Frames programming. We do hockey, actually, folks. We do fantasy hockey and NHL betting. That'll be tomorrow night on the Around the Ice podcast at 9:30 Eastern. Then, of course, we have Fantasy and Frames Wednesday with Dynasty 365 at 8 p.m., Shoot the Gap, our IDP show at 9, and then on Fourth and Frames at 10 p.m. with our weekly redraft show. And then next thing you know, we're going to be back for the Fantasy and Frames Sunday pregame show. We got our waiver wire article going out tonight and into tomorrow. We have our IDP waiver wire article going out. We got our plays and fades, our IDP plays and fades, our fantasy football trends of the week articles, as well as our rankings all over at fantasyandframes.com. So check out that. So for Aidan, for Colby, gentlemen, it's been great sharing the screen with you. Stacy, Eric, Charlene, and Colby will be back next week. For all you out there, good luck watching the rest of the game, and may you get the waiver wire targets that you're looking for. Take care.